Mold issues are hard to determine. The statutes don't specifically speak to mold like they do to some of the other issues. So the first thing you're going to want to do is look at the lease. Depending on what type of lease you have, you can have a gross lease, you can have an absolute lease. Absolute means I'm responsible for everything in this building. So if I'm responsible for everything in the building has mold, then the tenant likely can't break that lease based on mold, and instead the tenant would have to actually undertake the improvements to put that property back in the condition it was in. Now, looking further, your lease may say the tenant is responsible for HVAC or for plumbing. If the mold stems from an issue that the tenant's responsible for, then again, the landlord may not have any liability on that. It's going to be dependent on what responsibilities the tenant has. Now, if the landlord is responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep of that property, and the tenant is reporting mold, that could be a violation of one of the terms of the lease. It's going to be dependent on what the lease says. It's also going to be dependent on the severity of the mold. And different types of businesses are going to be affected differently, as well as one of the big issues with mold is that it affects people differently. So it's very hard to say how that's going to affect the landlord, because there's so many factors that are required to be dug further into. But mold does serve as a way for a tenant to break a lease if all of the factors line up in that tenant's favor.